It's countdown week. This week, I'm recapping my top 5 albums of recent years until I do the top 10 albums and tracks of 2022 on Thursday and Friday. 5 whole videos in a week? Can I keep up with that schedule? I guess you'll just have to keep checking back to make sure that I do. I'm Luke, and this is Stage 76. Apologies if my voice sounds a little off. I can feel myself starting to get sick, so I'm about to knock out 3 of these videos right now, if possible. So in this video, I'll be going over my top 5 albums of 2019. For this year, it was a bit difficult for me to select because, quite honestly, I just wasn't too crazy on a lot of the albums that came out this year. I think this is a pretty solid list, though, so let's get into it. Number 5, Atonement by Killswitch Engage. 8 albums in and still going strong. There's a lot to be said about this album. These songs just feel like more Killswitch Engage, and that's a good thing. I can't talk about this album without talking about The Signal Fire. While it may not be the best Killswitch Engage song to ever come out, it's quite close. When I first caught wind of Howard Jones coming back to collaborate on a song with Killswitch, my mind was blown. I never thought it would happen, and it turned out much better than I could have ever anticipated. Seeing both Howard and Jesse play that song together is an otherworldly experience. Some of the other standout songs like Unleashed, I Am Broken Too, and Ravenous all really help tie that album together. This is the peak of Jesse Leach's second era with Killswitch Engage. Father's love and mother's Number 4, Ginger's Macro. This is Ginger's first full-length follow-up to the viral success of Pisces. If somehow you haven't heard Pisces yet, go watch somebody react to it or something. People go absolutely buck wild when they see and hear that song. Back to the album at hand, Macro sends out the major progressive vibes that Ginger is known for, but packages them in a way that is quite appealing to someone like me who isn't necessarily super into progressive metal. They bring back some of that reggae influence on Judgment and Punishment. It's got just that right amount of groove to keep you bouncing your head on songs like On the Top, Home Back, and Retrospection, which is by far the best song on the album. No debates will be had. Thank you. This album just seems like a far more cohesive piece of work than any of Ginger's other work, other than perhaps the Micro EP, but in my opinion you can't really compare an album and an EP to each other. Ginger came out swinging with this one, and it really ended up a fantastic final product. Number 3, A Different Shade of Blue by Knocked Loose. This is the first hardcore entry in any of my top album lists because, quite honestly, I didn't have the ear for it before. I remember first listening to this album on a day I took off work to go see Slipknot, so I was pre-gaming my concert with a little Knocked Loose. It's a pretty substantially different type of music than Slipknot, but it goes even harder than they do. I can certainly recognize it's not the most brutal and crushing thing ever to be released, but damn, it just goes hard. Denied by Fate and Trapped in the Grasp of a Memory are 2 of my absolute favorites from this album. Mistakes Like Fractures deserve some sort of an award on its own, though, and simply for the SpongeBob remix. Gary, you are gonna finish your dessert, and you are gonna like it! Memes aside, if you're just getting into hardcore after listening to metal, this is definitely one album I would point you toward to get yourself started. I'd love to say more about the live versions of these songs, but I haven't had the chance to see Knocked Loose since this album was released. Get on your knees and bow down! Number 2, Trauma by I Prevail. This album is a second helping of proof that I Prevail isn't just that band that covered Taylor Swift one time. They really busted out of the gate with the 2 lead singles, Bow Down and Breaking Down. It's all about going down. But in all seriousness, Those two tracks alone showcase the type of range that I Prevail has. Bow Down is the super hype and heavy track to really get people going, while Breaking Down is a much more relaxed and radio-friendly type of song. This isn't a bad thing, though. We gotta have a little chill in with the heavy when it comes to a band like I Prevail. We see the introduction of more rapping-style vocals from Eric on this album. This is a bit of a shift from their slightly heavier, almost pop-punk style of going about things from Lifelines. They go even deeper into the more ballad-type songs on Every Time You Leave and I Don't Belong Here. They bring it even heavier on Gasoline, though. That's the type of song that kind of makes you want to fight someone, you know? Trauma is an album that keeps you guessing on what's coming next. And in this case, that's a very good thing.
And take great care to not take care.
Number 1, it's Slipknot. Nobody could have ever guessed this one. I put a Slipknot album at number 1 after mentioning them in almost every single video I've put out so far. We Are Not Your Kind. Hands down, the best album of 2019. It's hard for a band over 20 years into their career to put something out this good. And Slipknot pulled it off. I try not to ever hype up anything before it releases, but they kept putting out the singles and they were all so good. Starting it off with Unsainted was the best thing they possibly could have done to get people interested in the album. My personal favorite song on the album is the second song they released, Solway Firth. That uneasy but somber intro going into that crushing first guitar riff still makes me bang my head as soon as it kicks in. There is criticism around the more interlude type tracks on the album, but I will fight back against that criticism. I really like them because they add to the experience of listening to the album. Sure, you probably wouldn't listen to those tracks on their own, but that isn't really what they're for. They're a small piece of a larger work. It's also really cool to see Slipknot try some really different things on this album. Spiders has this really odd time signature for a Slipknot song. Half of My Pain is basically just weird noise. I don't usually care much for the more artsy-fartsy type of stuff, but Slipknot managed to do it in a way that even someone like myself can enjoy. I haven't even mentioned the fan favorite Neo Forte until now either. That song just slaps. All that needs to be said. Listening to this entire album is a great experience that I find myself revisiting more than any other album released in 2019. So those are my top 5 albums of 2019. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments. This is just my opinion. I wouldn't place too much stake in said opinion. I'm not exactly one of the most well-listened people, and I especially wasn't back in 2019. So be sure to tune in tomorrow for the top 5 albums of 2020. It's going to be an overall different feel counting down those albums. So come see what it's all about. Thanks for watching. I'm Luke, and this is Stage 76.
When you